Welcome back. The fall weather has a lot of us thinking about raking the leaves and those fall yard chores, but it's also time to start thinking about what comes on the other side of winter.
Thinking about it, not doing it, but thinking about it. Now's the time to prepare your soil for some spring planting, yes, before it freezes. Garden Guy Dale Kay joins us with some tips on getting your vegetable garden ready just in time for, well, everything to freeze up. Good morning, Dale.
Good morning to you, Cody. I was actually thinking about you this morning, Cody. Firstly, number one, you have just a spectacular tie on this morning, that fall tie.
Oh, yeah.
Really nice. But I was also thinking about, you were talking during the weather a little bit about how dry it is. And it's actually been one of the driest, as you mentioned, growing seasons for a long time. And amending your soil really, whenever you do it, is actually really beneficial. And essentially, that's what we're doing this morning, is amending soil, particularly when it comes to the vegetable garden, because no matter how well you garden, really the better the soil, the healthier the soil, the better your plants will grow, the greener the thumb. So when we're talking about amending soil, oh, Cody, one other thing, we're going to talk about compost too. Oh, crikey, here we go. So we're going to amend soil with compost and a few other additives. And the reason I like to do it in the fall is, well, firstly, my grandfather really taught me how to garden. And he himself used to do the same thing once the vegetable garden season is over. Even though it's a lot more temperate in Australia, once the vegetable garden season was over, he'd come back in and kind of prepare the garden beds for spring. So I kind of adopted that from him. But also, you're really out in your garden anyway at this time of year. Kelly mentioned raking up the leaves and all that kind of fun stuff. So once you get to the vegetable garden, you pulled out your tomatoes, you pulled out all your last little bit of lettuce, you're kind of out here anyway. So it's a perfect opportunity to enjoy a little bit of fresh air and do some exercise gardening as well. So mentioned that everything is out. And what I'm basically going to do is almost like layer a cake of amended soils, and really up to about 60% original soil, 40% amended soil is really ideal to turn back into the soil, and that really makes it a lot healthier. You'll have a lot less disease problems, and most importantly, we talked about how dry it is. All this kind of compost and peat moss will actually help retain soil moisture, which is so key. So you'll actually be watering less. And no matter, even if it's a dry season, just watering less in general is a lot better on the environment as well. So we've got a raised bed, but of course you can apply this to your garden bed or any type of veggie garden plot that you have in your neck of the woods. So what I've done first is lay down some peat moss, and it usually comes in a compressed bale just like this. You kind of bust it open. And what I like to do is spread it out, and that's the kind of the lighter chunks right here. That's the peat moss. And actually what is really good about peat moss, of course, it'll loosen the soil because plants need to breathe, and it'll also help retain moisture, and nutrients will actually bind to the peat moss, so everything kind of stays in place. So that is a really important ingredient that goes down. In the back there, I got that pile rod across the back there. That's my homemade compost. You can, of course, you should be making your own compost. It's really great. It's like little gold nuggets of goodness for your soil. You can also buy it in a bag from your favorite local garden shop, just like that. So once I've got my peat moss down, then I'm going to layer that down on top as well. And compost is really, really special stuff for your soil. I like to mix in any, oh look, there's a weed. Pull out any weeds too. The next thing I'm going to add is some well composted manure. You can use sheep manure, you could use cow, this is cow manure. It's all pretty good stuff, and that just kind of lays on top. And I'll basically rake all these ingredients out over the bed, so it's kind of like that layered cake effect. You could even put in some leaves. You could even put a layer of leaves if you're raking any leaves. Just make sure they're not diseased. You know, crab apples, a lot of crab apples have scab on them. Make sure all the leaves aren't diseased. But if you've got good leaves, maybe some oak leaves, that can go into the compost as well. And then I've got some leftover worm castings. That can go down. And I also have a little bit of leftover potting soil as well. And if you've got that, that can go down. Usually I don't use potting soil for amending soil. It tends to be a little bit spendy. It's much better in containers, but that was just such a small amount that I didn't want it to go to waste. So that can go right into the veggie garden as well. So from there, it's basically just adding in some fertilizer. And come this way, there's lots of different types of fertilizer that you can add. If you're unsure about what nutrients your plants need, or what your soil needs, I should say, you can pick up a soil test kit like this. It's a great little kind of like science project. It's kind of fun. You can have the kids get involved in that as well. All the directions are on the back, but that will tell you what deficiencies or fertilizer you may need, because in a small space like this, it is quite intense how much fertilizer gets used. But what I'm going to use is this Coop Poop right here. That's the secret ingredient. There you go, I'll stand back. You can take a look at it. If you want to know Dale K's secret ingredient, it's called Coop Poop. It's pelletized poultry manure, and it is absolutely dynamite. About a cup per square foot goes on top of the layer. And then what I'll do is, of course, spread all that out. Well, that's not a cup. There you go. That's a cup. That gets all spread out. I'll spread it out, and then I'll till it with a pitchfork. And that way, I'm not kind of really tilling it fine. I'm just kind of turning that into the soil. That basically lays like a bed. And Bob's your uncle. You'll be ready for spring lettuce, spinach, all that good stuff in no time. All you got to do, I'm praying, yes, spring's coming. All you got to do is get through winter.
Dale, I would like to mention that you said compost 9 times. I enjoyed every single time.
I did that just for you. If I had known you were going to be anchoring there, I would have done something different.
We're gonna actually work on like one of the little dingers and a tally mark at the end, so at the bottom of the screen. So every time you say it, you'll get a little ding.
That could be a good drinking game.
At
It is 9 o'clock in the morning.
All right, Dale. That's why we love you.
It's noon in Australia.
That is true.
Thank you, Dale.